We're back. This is one of the shorter but more fun episodes, and it contains a key insight that I'll repeat again: the value of low bounce pitching wedges or low bounce 9-irons for use in chipping from patchy grass where the ball nestles down between two patches. It's maybe nestled down on dirt. And it's always been hard, very frustrating, probably more frustrating than any other shot to try to hit, because you mess it up more than maybe any other shot. You take a swing at it, you don't get a clear, good strike on the ball. You maybe skull it and it goes too far, or you chunk it and it goes too short. So the value of low bounce for pitching wedges used on delicate chips or 9-irons on delicate chips is that the strike you get on the ball is less likely to be impeded by the turf. You get a clean strike because it has no bounce or even negative bounce. So I'm going to show you a bunch of pitching wedges. Won't take a lot of your time on this episode, but it's a fun episode. Now I'll start out with the really fun golf club. This is a rut iron or a track iron, pre-1905. I don't play clubs from this era. This is one that was picked up by me. I loved it because of all the famous names on it. The club maker, Tom Stewart, was famous. It mentioned a country club near where I lived in Chicago. It mentioned Wedges Country Club, which was very famous in the early days. 1906 U.S. Open was held at Wedges. This mentions also the pro at Wedges. So for that reason, I've kept it, acquired it, and I've said I don't collect clubs, I play them, but this is the only exception that I have to that rule. And the reason I bring it up now in this segment is because it has definite negative bounce. If you look at that, you can see the negative bounce. And Tom Stewart knew what he was doing. A rut iron was designed to extract the ball from a rut on the fairway made by a wagon. Back in the day when they had horse-drawn wagons used to maintain the golf courses, those wagon wheels would create ruts. You know, they were the old, they weren't rubber, they were wood wheels with a, usually I think a cast iron circumference that went about them, and one would need a special iron like this one. It's narrow so that it can get down in the rut, and negative bounce so that it would be more likely that you could extract the ball from the rut. And it's 46 degrees, which is about what today's pitching wedge is. You know, so it's like it's like a forerunner in some ways of today's pitching wedge, and it, you know, probably would be useful if I ever were to try it in trying to extract the ball on a delicate chip from the patchy green side grass, you know, because it's narrow, has no bounce, and it's a heavy swing weight, by the way. It's an E2. So again, the ancients knew a thing or two about building clubs. Heavy swing weight, no bounce, you know, makes sense to me. Wilson made for years, starting in the 30s, because I've got some of these, I've got what they call pitching irons. It's the forerunner to the pitching wedge, but they had negative bounce, and I'll show those to you in the next episode, my clubs from between like 1933 and 1954. I'll show you some of them, but here's a 55. It's 1 year in front of our Dyna-powered years. It's a Dyna weight, they call it. But this has very definitely a negative bounce, which you can see. and it sets the stage for the Dyna-powered pitching wedges that were to follow. Here's the Holy Grail. It's the sister club to the Holy Grail sand iron from 1958. This one is, and the same club was made in 59, and I look at this and it's missing the red arrow, so this actually is a 59, but the 58 and the 59 pitching wedges were basically just alike. You see the tall L in Wilson, you see the pin shaft. That's the giveaway that it's the genuine article. And that has no bounce at all. It's a smart design, and because that's the sister to the Holy Grail 58, that's a coveted sand wedge. Here's another little detour, fun detour. Walter Hagen is a set of clubs. Maybe now they're kind of regarded as department store clubs or something like that, to the extent we even have department stores anymore. But Walter Hagen was a super premium line owned by Wilson. Not as many were made as were made of the premium Dyna-Power line. The Dyna-Power line is wonderful, and but super premium. There's on the message boards. I saw a post saying from some guy who says, he used to caddy in the 60s, and the guys who drove up to the country club in Lincolns and Cadillacs had Walter Hagen, and the guys who drove up in Chryslers had Wilson Dyna-Powers. So Walter Hagen was a premium line. There weren't very many of them made, but you can see the similarity, the striking similarity in the designs of this 58. I guess it's technically a 59 pitching wedge, and the Walter Hagen version, which actually is a 58 for reasons I won't go into. But I did want to mention Walter Hagen at some point, because that's a very nice club made by Wilson, and sometimes they were very similar. And now I want to talk about a 9-iron from 1960. This is, I carry a 9-iron in my bag for chipping because I don't like a 51 degrees of loft as much as I like 48 degrees of loft or 47 for chipping, from close in delicate lies. But this one from 1960 has either no bounce or negative bounce. I mean, again, you can pick the ball clean without interference from the turf, allowing you to calibrate your distance and to not either underhit or overhit. And that is not something you see today. Today, if you go buy a Vokey that's 48, it's going to have 6 degrees of bounce. My famous Titleist 680 irons, that pitching wedge, which is like 48 degrees, 47 degrees, that has 7 degrees of bounce. At some point, Wilson switched over to slightly more bounce. This is the 69, and you can see that there's some bounce on this wonderful, beautiful 69. These are the clubs that I got when I was in 1970, and Halerwin won a couple of U.S. Opens. Bernhard Langer won a Masters or two with this famous set of bullet backs. But Wilson was switching over to be, for whatever reason, don't know why, but they wanted to put some bounce on their wedges. I would suggest to you that, and this is the last thing I'll say, it would be a good thing if you had a no bounce wedge in your bag to go along with your no bounce sand wedge for the heavy rough. Again, completely different situations. The pitching wedge is used for delicate chips. The low bounce sand wedge is used used in hard packed sand or in situations where you aren't worried about digging and hitting a fat shot. So with that, we'll set the stage for the next episode, which will address Wilson's heavy, big bounce, pre-1956 sand irons. Again, another little detour into history. It'll be a short episode. Thank you.